I think I'll always have a special place in my heart for The Body by Stephen King because it was the first movie adaptation of Stephen King that my parents let me watch. And what's funny is they had no idea that there was actually a quote in that movie that said, "You four-eyed pile of shit. A pile of shit has 1,000 eyes." Let's talk about The Body. The most important things are the hardest to say. They are the things you get ashamed of because words make them smaller. When they were in your head, they were limitless, but once they come out, they seem to be no bigger than normal things. But that's not all. The most important things lie too close to wherever your secret heart is buried. They are clues that could guide your enemies to a prize they would love to steal. It's hard and painful for you to talk about these things, and then people just look at you strangely. They haven't understood what you've said at all, or why you almost cried while you were saying it. Love isn't soft like those poets say. Love has teeth, which bite, and the wounds never close. I want to hear about it, that's all. That's all they want, really. The firing squads, the gas chambers, the ovens, the guys who had to dig their own graves and then stand on the end so they'd fall into them, the examinations, the experiments, everything. All the gushy stuff. You are the monster. Homesickness is not always a vague, nostalgic, almost beautiful emotion, although that is somehow the way we always seem to picture it in our mind. It can be a terribly keen blade, not just a sickness in metaphor, but in fact as well. It can change the way one looks at the world. The faces one sees in the street look not just different, but ugly, perhaps even malignant. Homesickness is a real sickness, the ache of the uprooted plant. Yes, some birds are just not meant to be caged, that's all. Their feathers are too bright, their songs too sweet and wild. So you let them go, but when you open the cage to feed them, they somehow fly out past you. And part of you knows that it was wrong to imprison them in the first place. But still, the place where you live is that much more drab and empty for their departure. Always remember that hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. It always comes down to just two choices: get busy living or get busy dying. Hey, what's up, bookworms and constant readers? Mike back for a third time to talk about Stephen King's 1982 novella collection, Different Seasons, and today we're talking about The Body by Stephen King, obviously. Now, guys, this is a story that is very, very special. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the movie or recognize the story in some regard, so it's something that I feel like maybe some more people will understand a bit more than Apt Pupil, because I think people are still scared to talk about Apt Pupil based off of the traffic on that video. But this is, again, the third story within here. It is, each one uses the different season. This one is subtitled Fall from Innocence, obviously because of what it deals with in the story content. And that is a perfect place to get into what is it about? It is 1960 in Castle Rock, Maine, and Ray Brower has gone missing. Now, he is a boy from a nearby town. He's disappeared, and 12-year-old Gordy LaChance and his three friends hear a little bit of a secret about the kid got hit by a train, and they think, we're going to go and track down his body along the railroad tracks. Now, during the course of their journey, they learn a lot about themselves. Gordy, Chris Chambers, Teddy Duchamp, and Vern Tessio come to terms with death, true friendship, and the harsh truths of growing up in a small factory town that doesn't offer much in the way of a future. And that leads us into 1982's The Body. Again, probably one of the most recognized Stephen King stories, but that just leads us right into, guys, what makes it good or bad? I think that this might be one of the best coming of age stories ever told. And I know you might think that just sounds, whoa, that sounds like crazy hyperbole. I've said time and time again on this channel, King's forte isn't horror. His forte is the coming of age story. That is where his bread is buttered. To me, that is why so many people latched onto his books at a young age, and now they're my age and they go back and they read them and they remember those things of coming of age just as well as they did when they were that age. And this is definitely the bright spot. I'll always talk about it being my favorite book, but this is just straight, no nonsense, no supernatural, just straight to the heart of what the coming of age story is. And I would argue that he does it better than anyone in just 140 pages of this novella, because it is brilliant. But it isn't just that. I think that this is probably, when a lot of people complain that they can't really get into Stephen King, they don't really like his prose. And I think even Stephen King will say that he doesn't have a prose that's worthy of remembrance. I mean, I think he's being a little self-deprecating, but that's okay. I think that this story probably has the most beautiful prose in any of his book. There's several passages in this book. Like there's one I used in the intro about your enemies finding out where your secret heart is buried. Absolutely stunning. Like I don't write or highlight in my books, and I almost do with that one because that's just such a beautiful quote. I love it. In fact, the one that I use on my bookshelf, if I didn't use the one that I used, I probably would have used that one because it's just stunning. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's probably 4 or 5 of them just in this short story alone that are just absolutely wonderful, and you learn them by heart because they're truly special. So people who have ragged on his prose a little bit, I think this might be maybe what you're looking for here. I think it also gets to the point of that whole endless summer thing you had as a kid. You never wanted your summer to end. You're having a good time with your friends. It seemed like life was never going to get better than when you were 11 or 12, hanging out with your pals, and just my age bracket, just hanging out with your friends, riding your bikes, and you get going to the gas station and getting the nice cold soda in the hot sun. It's just one of those things that it captures those moments so well, of those things you remember as a kid. And whether you read this as a teenager for the first time or you read it in your 30s for the first time, it's going to hit something for you that brings back your childhood, I believe. And that, to me, is just 100% amazing in the way that he's able to capture those feelings in a story that's this old. But I think it also deals with some of the not so great parts of childhood, the loneliness of childhood, the isolation of childhood, dealing with loss as a child. There are some things in here that Gordy has to deal with, with death in the family, and the whole isolation that treatment that he receives from his parents after that. And it's one of those things you look at and you're just like, it's just not fair. But I mean, there's lots of things you can look back at your childhood and say, yeah, that probably wasn't fair. And, if you're like me now and you have children, you're a parent, you can see things from both sides of it. But there's things that you look back at and you're like, it just isn't fair. But again, to me, what is being a kid more than saying life's not fair, right? And this gets that across, that life isn't fair, and it's kind of what you have to learn to live through to make it to this point in life. But I think one of the best things about this book, and this is always something that it seems like only Stephen King and Joss Whedon know how to do, is they know how to write how kids talk to each other. Now, Whedon's more the late teens, early 20s, whereas this is, preteens. But he absolutely nails the way that young boys talk to each other. We're crass, we're lewd, we cuss too much, we're super, super immature, and he just goes for that, and he absolutely hits a home run with the dialogue in this book. I talked about the 4-eyed pile of shit line. There's so many in here that you're just laughing, thinking, okay, some stuff might be a little aged to the 60s, since this takes place in the 1960s, but again, you think back when you're a kid, and you had no reason to be cussing. You were just like, okay, I can get away with it because my parents aren't around. So you would just blatantly cuss like a sailor. And it isn't just the bad words. I mean, just the way that they talk to each other. Their campfire discussion is some of the most heartfelt and just feel-good stuff that you will ever encounter in a coming-of-age story. It's just terrific. And it's one of those things that I don't know what he retained from his childhood to be able to remember exactly how to write children, because it doesn't seem like any other author. They write these kids and you're like, what kid is talking like this? We're talking like kids on Dawson's Creek. We didn't talk like that as kids. He is able to do that so well that I don't think anyone else can capture what he does with that. And it is really, really on display in this book. But I think it captures that feeling of just not wanting to grow up. I talked about the endless summer, but again, just wanting to be 11, 12 forever. I mean, when you're a kid, you think, oh, I can't wait till I'm older. When you're older, you're like, I wish I could be younger. I think it's right there at preteen when you know life's about to change. You know, you're hitting junior high and things like that, and you don't want it to end. You want just that idea of you and like your three best friends just going out there and just doing your thing, and you never wanted that to end. And it's one of those things you really can't explain, but if you know what I'm talking about, you feel it right here, and this book will make you remember that feeling, and it's super special. I think facing the truth of growing up in a dead-end town in rural America, that's kind of a big deal. You know, a one-factory town. It's kind of a thing where you're growing up wanting to. Your parents are like, you need to get better educated because you've got no future here. You need to go somewhere else, kind of thing. And realizing that your parents have kind of set you up to fail. Again, this is taking point, or this is from the point of view from the kids, and I think that's what makes it really, really cool. Is you see that they're like, but basically our parents have set us up to fail here, and I don't want to be in this town forever. Chris has like this terrible reputation, and it's completely unfounded. But in this this small town like this, that's your reputation from here on out, And then you got of course, you got your bully in here, Ace, which is just absolutely terrifying. If you were one of those people who were picked on in middle school, you had an Ace. You know all about an Ace. So again, this isn't just all the great, feel good, I love everything about being a kid. It's got a lot of struggles with it too. But obviously, this probably will sound a little morbid to some people. But something I once heard was that your childhood ends the moment that you realize that one day you're going to die. And I think that is the big fall from innocence in this, is, they're having a good time. This is like an adventure to them. This is a bonding experience. And then when they actually do what they set out to do, it completely opens their eyes to death. And just, again, your mortality really looks you in the face, and you say, wow, how much time do I have? I need to start taking life more seriously. Again, it is the end of childhood. And it's something that just greatly resonated with me, and it has for millions of people who have read this story. So, again, there is way more good about this book than bad, but I do have a couple of bad things. There is one or two parts in this book where Gordy is a writer, because Stephen King loves to write himself into these stories, and he was an aspiring writer. So of course Gordy is an aspiring writer, and it shares some of his complete short stories within this short story. They're not that good. It's kind of like I said, it's kind of like what Guard did in Tommyknockers, where he's reading his poetry, and I was like, it's not that good. So that might be it. But again, this is 140 pages. I'd probably call that another bad, is that it's so short, much like Shawshank. This is one that you wanted to go on at least another 100 pages because it felt like it could have been fleshed out so much more. But again, I don't know if the story would have carried the same impact if it had been longer. But really, there's not very much bad to say about this. This will be a story I reread again and again and again. So yeah, if you want some more bad on this one, you probably aren't going to find it here. So I'll go ahead and move into why you should read it. Look, chances are you love the movie Stand By Me. The reason they called it Stand By Me is they thought if they put the name Stephen King's The Body on it, people were going to think it was a horror movie and not see it. So they just called it Stand By Me and not The Body. Same thing happened with just Shawshank Redemption instead of Stephen King's Rita Hayworth in Shawshank Redemption. They thought that at the time, maybe putting his name on some of this stuff, because he had some bad movies out by this point. So I get why they did that. But again, chances are you've seen the movie and you've loved it. Rob Reiner was in one of those very small minority of people, like a Frank Darabont, like a Mike Flanagan now, who seem to get the source material with King. And this is one of the best Stephen King adaptations because, like Shawshank, it is maybe the closest to the source material. There is dialogue ripped straight from this book in that movie, and it is delivered beautifully. So say you really like the movie, you want a little bit of an expansion, you get a little more expansion in here. Yes, believe it or not, the novella has a little bit more expansion than the movie does. There are more things with Ace. There are a couple of differences. And again, you just talk about that beautiful prose. There's going to be some things in there that really hit you, especially if you like the movie. I think that you really can flesh out those characters. So I would say treat this, if you love the movie, treat this as like the director's cut, and read this, because I think that you'll definitely find something you love if you love the movie. And nostalgia, man. I keep beating that drum here. I don't think you'll have any problems remembering that feeling you had as a preteen, what life was like and what your priorities were, and you had no cares in the world except staying true to your pals, right? That was it. I mean, to me, I can't think. I mean, say it is too long for you, because I will continuously say that it is my favorite Stephen King story, and it is very much The Body times 10 in page length, but with a big scary monster in it. I really feel like that set the seeds for what actually became it. So if you love The Body and you want to read it, or if you love it, maybe, like I said, maybe you thought it was too long, or you don't want anything scary, this is exactly what you're looking for. So I think it's just a perfect time capsule of life in 1960s rural America. It really is. And again, growing up, I don't feel like the 1980s were as far removed as like the 1980s to now. Obviously that's a bigger gap. But the 1980s and 1960s, yeah, we had video games. Yeah, we had, more TV and stuff like that. We didn't depend on like radio for our baseball games. But it was still very much, your childhood was spent outside with your friends. There was no electronic devices in our hand the whole time. And I hate doing the back in my day thing here, but I'm saying this is why maybe it clicked with me so much, is reading this as an adult now, as on a reread, made me immediately transport back to the mid-1980s, with the Guns N' Roses tank top on, blasting the Iron Maiden on the little carrier boombox that we put on the front of our bicycle, and just basically from sun up to sundown, you were on your bikes with your friends all day, and that was life. That's kind of what this made me think of. So again, if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for some of those member berries, guys, you're going to find it, because they're here and they are absolutely beautiful in every way. And like I said, this is maybe some of the most beautiful prose that the man has ever written, and he's wrote some damn good ones in my opinion, so that means a lot coming from me. So I enjoyed this one every bit as much on a reread as I did the first time, and all it made me want to do is go watch the movie again, because it's brilliant. It is really a very brilliant adaptation, and Rob Reiner would actually do King material again with Misery, another one of his best movies. So again, it seems like only 3 directors have ever really gotten Stephen King's material. So Mike Flanagan to make everything going forward, I hope. There are a couple of Multiverse Connections, but again, not that many, since this was really, really early. Teddy Duchamp's uncle ran Teddy's Amico in Chamberlain, Maine. That was in Cary, so that was a nice little connection there. And then, of course, Ace Merrill, the bully from the story, does show up in Needful Things, and he actually does make references to those little brats who screwed with his life as a teenage child, because nothing was ever his fault. So very, very small connections this week, but maybe there'll be some more coming up when we move to the next book in this retrospect. But we'll talk about that when we get to Fright Fest 2020, because there might be some Stephen King in there. Who knows? But that's it, guys. That's all I've got for this week. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I hope you have plenty of things to tell to me about in the comments about The Body. Stand by Me. Even if you've only seen the movie, please drop in the comments. Tell me what you think about the story, why it was important to you. Hey, why you didn't like it. It's okay. It's all good here, and I will talk to you guys there.